Hello and welcome to Alt+Prog. My name's Mark and I like talking about computers, and in an earlier video I promised to show you how to monitor the progress of copying a large file. And now it's time to deliver on that promise, so let's get started.
Okay, so here we are. We've got a file called my file, and it's 17.2 gigabytes. Actually, it isn't. It's 16 gig. No, it's 17.2. No, it's 16. Let me show you. Let's take 16. 16 gigabytes is 16 kilobytes times kilobyte times kilobyte, and 1 kilobyte is not 1,000 bytes, but 1,024. So it's 16 times 1,024 times 1,024 times 1,024. Here we go. And that is 17 billion and change, right? Let's take a look at this some other way and you'll see what I mean. Here's another way of looking at the file. So we're going to go to the data folder and we're going to do an LL, list all the files there. And there's my file. And remember that size we worked out as 16 gig? Take a look, they're the same. So this is a 16 gigabyte file. Now we're going to do the copy, but in order to do the copy, we're going to be using a subshell. And the reason for that is we're using variables as part of our copy process, and we don't want those variables to still be hanging around after the copy finishes. So we're going to set up the variables in a subshell. So the first variable is F1, that's the file we're copying. F2 is the file we're copying to. And let's go and look on another screen. We've got the data folder there. We're going to go into that. We're going to do an ls-l or an ll. It depends on which distribution you're using. On some distros you do need to use the full ls-l. And if we do a wc-c on my file, that'll give you the count of the number of bytes in the file. But you see, it also gives you the name of the file right afterwards. Well, we don't really want that, so how do we get rid of it? Well, we can do a wc-c, and then we'll take my file as our file we're checking, and then we're going to pipe the output into cut, and we're going to cut out the first field only. So that means we're going to use cut -d as my delimiter, and the space is the delimiter character, but because we use spaces to delimit parameters in the command, we have to escape the delimiter space with a backslash. So when we come back here, we're pasting the size of the file as a value that we've calculated using the wc-c with the cut. So let's paste that in, and it's a bit slow. You bored yet? There we go. And so we're going to do a wc-c on my file to get, and then pipe into cut to get the number of bytes in my file. We only need to do that once because this is the file we're copying from. The file we're copying to doesn't exist, so the size of that we can take to be 0. And then we're going to go into a loop eventually. Before we do that, we're going to do a no-hup and do a copy. Why are we doing this copy as a no-hup background process started in another subshell? Well, that's so we can monitor the copy while it's running in background. So we kick off the copy in background, then we go into a loop where we want to check to see if S1 and S2 are the same size, because if they're the same size, and remember S2 is the size of the file that is being copied to, if the two values are the same, that means the copy is complete, right? So while S1 isn't equal to S2, that means while the copy is still going, we need to do something in this loop. So we'll sleep for a couple of seconds, so we're not going mad spinning around checking the size of the file, but now we need to do another check to check the size of the file. And there's another way of looking at the size of the file, and that is to do an ls-l. I'm just doing it this way for giggles, okay? And for this one, we need to get the fifth field. So we'll use the cut trick again. Here we go. Escape the delimiter space character for -d and another space before the -f, and we need to say F5 this time to get the fifth field. There we go, and hit enter, and there is the size of the file in bytes again. So two ways of doing the same thing. We can do a check on how long these tests take, and to do that we would use the time command ahead of the command we're trying to run, and we'll do that with the WC. We take that, see that takes 4 milliseconds, and if we try it with the ls-l, let's see, copy it and paste it. It takes 9 milliseconds. But that is all dependent on the load on the system, and you could find on your system that these timings could be better for LS and WC. Very much your mileage will vary. So we can check the size of the file again. That's the value of S2. So we need to update the value of S2. That's going to be taking the output of some kind of size check command. In this case, we're going to use ls-l. Why not, eh? And these are just two ways of checking the size of a file. They're not the only two ways. And then we'll just echo that size. But we're going to do a bit more than that, because what we're going to do, we may as well put in some kind of timestamp. So why don't we do that? And the easy way to do that is to just use the date command, date plus %T, and then we'll make it a little bit neat and tidy. We'll put a colon and a space like that, and then we need to put how many bytes of how many bytes copied. So it's going to be S2 bytes so far of S1, total number of bytes, there we go, copied, and then we need to work out the percentage, and so we're going to do an inline calculation for that. So let's use $ and then double parenthesis like that to do the percentage calculation, and then we'll just stick a % after it. And this is all for bling and all for show, right? And then inside the double parentheses, well, we need to do a calculation. S2 over S1, that'll be the fraction, but then we need to change that into a percentage. So let's multiply that by 100. And it all went horribly, horribly wrong. Why? Well, that's because we forgot the copy, the CP command, and then it still went horribly wrong because when we were calculating the value of S2, we were checking the size of my file. That's the file we're copying, not the file we're copying to. But we still managed to kick off the copy in background, so we're going to wait for that to finish and we'll have another go at this. So let's just wait and do another ls-l or another ll. Yep, almost done. You can see the size of my file 2 is going up and up. And there we go. Files are copied. And now we can just get rid of my file 2 and have another go. And we can do that because this is only a 16 gig file, and we have quite fast equipment here, so everything's done on SSDs these days, isn't it? So we need to change the S2 setting so that it's checking the size of my file 2, not the size of my file. We could also have used $F1 and $F2 here. Now let's see how it's going. Oh yeah, there we go. You can see that we've got every 2 seconds now, the number of bytes copied so far, and the percentage complete. See, that's just rolling up the screen, just like that. And I picked 16 gig because I thought that would be a big enough file to demonstrate what's going on, but not so big that you're going to be bored watching this thing go for hours. I'll be using this technique later to check the progress of copying a 150 gigabyte zip file. Boy, won't that be fun. I won't show you that, it'd be too boring. And there we go, we're done. So that is a one-line command that does a copy of one file to another file, large files, both of them, and gives you a display showing you how many bytes copied so far, what percentage, kind of like a progress indicator. It's not a progress bar like you see in Windows. You can do that, but maybe that's the subject of another video. Anyway, that's it.
Well, if you got this far, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, share and tell your friends. Let's all learn together and carry on coding. Take care everybody. Bye for now.